So I know a lot of people who went into a marriage with a child, an infant, and that's because whoever had impregnated them did not take that child, did not approve of, or had absconded, for the want of a better way to describe it, and so the man who's taken that child in has officially made that child his child, maybe by paperwork. I'm sure I'm going to leave that to you for you to explain to us. But that child now bears his name. And then maybe 13, 12, 15 years later, the man now shows up and says, well, that's my child, blah, blah, blah. And the other man says, well, this is my child legally, legitimately. This is my child. And where were you? So how do you argue that out in terms of legitimacy?
Okay, that's where the issue of marriage comes in, that I said earlier, that once a child is born within the subsistence of a valid marriage, it is presumed that it belongs to the husband of that marriage. Now, if a third party now comes in 13 years after to disprove that, he has to come with very, very cogent
proof.
Like
DNA.
If the other man does not submit to...
Well, yes, because either woman would say
it's
no.
Basically, yes. And if the woman is saying, no, I don't know her.
Yeah.
It's basically because of public policy. The courts would not want to, you can't just wake up one day. A man who's been taking care of a child, submit, done everything, register that child in his name and all of that. You can't just wake up and come and say, I own the child. You have to come with very concrete proof. Your proof has to be overwhelming that you own that child.
Is DNA not good enough?
Well, if the man does not submit to DNA.
So let's move away a bit from the parents here. Let's talk about the child who's involved, for example. Yes. If the child is old enough and maybe even beyond 18, does that child not also have a right? Because there are also children who say, well, I don't know you. You abandoned me. I've never heard anything about you. Well, I did know of you, but I've never seen you.
But once the child is over the age of 18, you can't compare paternity. We can't be discussing paternity.
Okay, so there are also children who are 12, 13 who say, I don't care. This is my father. This is the person I know as my father.
But that does not remove the fact that the biological father is still the
the child does not have a say in this particular matter?
I don't think so. Because we're talking about biological and yes, there's psychological parenting. That's different. What we're trying to prove biological.
Legitimacy.
Yes, legitimacy. So now there's another way where a child can be legitimated, a child born outside of wedlock, is if that man acknowledges that child before his death.
Oh.
That child is legitimate for all purposes, inclusive of succession. But how do you show acknowledgement? Because any woman can't just wake up one day and bring a child to the graveside and say belongs to...
But this is what we see in Nigeria. Come on, Olamide. You know that. I think it was Uncle Jimmy that was saying that if a man dies and children don't pop up at his funeral, then of course that man led a good life. But looking at what it is right now, every time a man dies, some 3 women show up and say, this
Not
is
every
child.
time. Oh my goodness. Miriam.
Many times. In this our climb. we sow seeds. So but in cases like that where you've lived with this man forever, you've known him and your children to be his only family, and then the moment he kicks the bucket, more children show up, and sometimes the child is even older than your first child.
So I've seen a lot of cases. Now, so this is the place of acknowledgement. Once the father acknowledges that child before his death, then that child belongs to the man. Maybe it could be that he's been paying school fees. If there's evidence to show he's been paying school fees, they know him in the child's school. His name is registered with the mother on the birth certificate. A lot of acts that showed that during his lifetime he acknowledged that child. And in most cases, under customary law, you must do it in the presence of witnesses, especially family members.
Oh.
In most of these cases, you will find that there's one uncle that knows that child.
But keeps it away from his wife, though. His legitimate wife.
In most cases, his family members will know the child. And they are the ones that will say, yes, Omo one. And once they acknowledge, even family members can acknowledge a child. And give legitimacy to that child. Because issues are always arising where children of the statutory marriage and their mother, as opposed to a child outside of wedlock, when it comes to succession. And it's always mostly when they want to apply for letters of administration. In time past, it's always been said, oh, they have no legitimacy because they were not born within the marriage. And most of the judges then, because of public policy, they did not want to be seen as encouraging promiscuity. A man who submitted voluntarily to a marriage and had children cannot just wake up one day and bring a child outside and say, this is also my child, and that child must have equal rights with the children born within wedlock. That was the position of the law then. But if you look at it, it's a lot of disadvantage to the child who did not choose to be born in that way. So what the law has done is under section 42 subsection 2 of the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria, it says that a child, nobody should be subjected to discrimination or depravity based on the circumstances surrounding their death, whether on the basis of gender, religion, or any circumstances. So based on that, a lot of judges are now ruling against the issue of legitimacy.
Okay.
To say that child, so far there is acknowledgement, right? Then that child is legitimate and will be put on the same status as the other children born within wedlock. But in a lot of cultures, the issue of legitimacy is still very, very, very loud. In a lot of, I know for sure, Yoruba culture, so far the family acknowledges.
Yeah, a child.
A child. And that child will be, how do I call it? The child will also be placed on the same footing for. Let me now tell you something.
Know what it means?
Now, I don't know. Even, that woman was, if the woman who was married under native law and custom, the wife, right, they now found out that the husband had the child outside of it. When it's now child for succession, distribution of the estate of the man. If the woman was married under native law and custom, and she had like 5 children, and another woman now comes up later with one child, and the family acknowledges, and there are evidence to show that the man acknowledged that child during his.
The child is included?
Not only included. If they want to do it the way
you have equal wealth.
Not equal. You know the way they will divide it? They will divide the estate into 2.
Wow.
2 equal parts. The child who came from a concubine will get half.
Then the 5 will have
half.
That's not nice.
Except if she was married under the act.
Marry under the act, though. That's all we're going to say today.